the live as well. Okay, the event is now being recorded. Hopefully my lighting's okay. Good morning, welcome. Those of you in the actual webinar with me, good morning to you. So let's see, Danica. Okay, let me see. I've got all kinds of people here joining me. So grateful for that. Let me you are going to have to let me know if you can hear. Okay. All right. We're good. Danica, for whatever reason, can't see you in the list, but that's okay. You're okay. Good. Good morning. See, it takes a village. All right. Okay. And if you're joining me on Facebook, welcome. Okay. So you're here joining me online. Okay. And we're in Block to Brain Healing and 3 Steps. I am Dr. Tiffany. I am sole proprietor of Doc Brown Bush Integrative Therapy. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I am a neuro psychotherapist. That's who I am. So during this talk today, I would love it if you would share with me if you're up for it. And you know, I understand if you don't want to. But if you would share with me who you are, what's going on with you, why you wanted to even participate today in this webinar. Um, where do you feel your blocks? Where do you need your healing? This is more of a workshop than it is just sit passively and receive. Really take this as an opportunity, one, to pick my brain, you know, ask me questions, share, but also try to get some real healing out of this. You know, try to think about your own situation. And I'm going to give you my process. And I want you to try to apply my process and see, okay, well, how does this fit for my situation? Not just the people I'm going to share with you. Okay. And I think we have the ability, if you would like to come on screen. So if you want those, I did this before in the last, um, okay, allow to turn on camera. So, and allow to turn on, there you go. You don't have to, but I'm allowing it. And Danica, I see what you did, which was very smart. If you want to go through and give them permissions to turn on their cameras for me while I'm talking, please do so. Hey there, Miss Doris. Good morning. Okay. If everyone else wants to be as courageous as Miss Doris, um, I would love to see happy, smiling faces. So, Danica, let me know if you're able to do this for me so I can get on. Let's see, Amira, back again. Yes, that's the idea, Amira. You're just supposed to keep coming back over and over again until you just decide you want to hang out with me. That's what you're supposed to do. And some of you already are my clients, and you're like, let me learn some more, which I love. I'm always in someone's training. So chronic Lyme, severe brain fog from the Lyme, want you to try to heal your vagus nerve, also perimenopause. So that's what's going on for you. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Doris, do you have anything you want to share? You don't have to, no pressure. Is there anything you want to share with us about why you're here? And I think you're muted. So if you want to, you can unmute yourself. Let's see. Oh, you did it.
Okay. Well, I would like to control my emotions better and be able to create boundaries.
Okay.
Well,
Nice. Yeah, yeah. And isn't it interesting? Controlling your emotions better is actually an expression of boundaries with yourself, right? So the more boundaries we have with ourselves, the more boundaries we're able to have with the outside world. So it's which I find is way easier is if once I started learning, like I have boundaries with myself and my different parts, because I have some really excited parts. And I grew up in a colorful family where anger was expressed a lot. And I had to learn how to do that properly and have different boundaries with myself. And then once I worked with my own system, I was able to have better boundaries with the outside world. So I hope something I share today is helpful. But thank you for hopping on and letting us see your face. And if anybody wants to turn their camera on but you don't have permission, please put it in the chat. And Danica, if you don't know how to do that, you let me know that you don't know how to turn all give them permissions for their camera. Amira, you've been trying to get in with me for weeks. Okay. Danica, let's make a note of that. I swear, Amira, you're on a list. I think that's the case. And then Danica, if you can help Amira turn her camera on, you've got to click over her little camera icon. And then somebody else is typing. Okay. Okay. Yes. So, okay, good. Thank you, Danica. Danica is one of my team members. And so we have a bit of a robust team. Because again, it's just me. So she always hops on when I'm doing these presentations, and then we'll drop some links, answer any questions and all that good stuff. So if you were with me the last time, I did a presentation on Brain Warriors Way. So then how is this one different? You know, you signed up again, but you might not have realized how this one was different. Brain Warriors Way is kind of my fundamentals. It's my foundation. It's what I wished everyone knew. It's please drink half your body weight in ounces of water. It's please have basic blood work done. It's what is the mindset? Um, it's assessments, it's all of those things that I need y'all to understand as a foundational basic starting block. Today is different. Okay, today, good job, I see it happening there, Danica. Today is different. Today is welcome, Amira. See, I got a face now. Okay, that's great. I'm not just talking to a screen. Um, Today is like that next level that you do with me. Okay. And so I just want to briefly tell you this isn't a long talk about all of my credentials and all that. I'm a practitioner in Lake Norman. All of you are in the area, so that should make sense to you. I am a combination of mental health, nutritional healing, functional medicine. People will say that they kind of come to me as an alternative to traditional psychiatry. Okay. So if you don't want to do medications, if you've had a head injury, if you have brain fog, mental health struggles, you're trying to work with your emotions, and you don't want to go traditional route, I'm who you come to. Okay. And it's harder. So you don't come to me because I'm easy. You come to me usually out of desperation and frustration. Okay. And I have a variety of different trainings that it's a little eclectic. I bring everything in and it's an integrative approach. So these are all the things, okay? I love treating anxiety, ADHD. I love treating brain fog, autoimmune disorders. I treat bulimia and anorexia. I love working with all kinds of just like stressed out, traumatized nervous systems. That's my jam. I'm not as gifted at some other things. Like depression's not my that's not my strong suit. I'm going to be honest. If it's depression related to autoimmunity or illness or a head injury, yes, but I'm there are some things that I'm just not as good at. I like an overstressed system and an unfocused system. That's where I'm gifted. Okay. So if you know somebody who needs some help with that, I promise you I'm your girl. And I'm always training, and these are the different specialties that I have. Okay. So let's talk about briefly my story. If you are going through it, I have probably already gone through it, might be in the middle of it. Um, that is probably why you are attracted to it. Danica, you see Miss Marty needs some help with her camera too. If you can do that for us, thank you. Um, I have the same trauma history as a lot of my clients. I had a lot of toxins, emotional struggles, executive function issues, fatigue, all kinds of stuff. I think I have been taken through all these things so that you have a friendly face and somebody who can genuinely empathize to walk you through the fire, to walk hand in hand with you. If I didn't go through it, I helped my husband through it. So I just decided that God just has, oh, there she is. Hey, Miss Marty, let me meet you. There you go. That God put me on this path. This is my purpose. I'm supposed to help all of us heal. Okay, so that's who I am. And Miss Marty has known me for, I don't know. She'll put in the chat. I don't know how many years now, and she can attest to the fact that this is absolutely what I do with my whole life. Okay, we've known each other for a long time. Okay, so here's what we're gonna learn today. So maybe make a note. We're going to talk about brain fog. We're going to talk about lack of focus. We're going to talk about fatigue since 2008, says Miss Marty. So it's been a while. And we're going to talk about my process where we identify what the block is, identify what your boost needs to be, and this is where we are, and repair what's hurt. Okay, there's a process, right? So you've already done the Brain Warriors way, you've got the foundation, you're sleeping, you're eating properly, you pulled out the sugar, you're doing all the things, right? And if you're not and you need help with that, that's something I can work with. But let's say you've got the basics down, you're even kind of exercising, and you're still dealing with brain fog, a lack of focus, and fatigue. No matter what you do, you can't touch it. Maybe you've been on all the meds. No matter what you do, you can't touch it. Okay. You've talked to all the therapists. You've done all the things. So now we're going next level with trying to make sense of things. I'll tell you a story about someone in the practice, and then I'll tell you what the boosts need to look like, and definitely want you to ask me questions. I have a three-leg stool of healing. I believe that true healing, where you're not in somebody's office indefinitely, is brain based, psychologically based, and physical. Okay. If you don't do all three, you don't get healthy. I just, that's it. That's my whole belief system when it comes to working with people. Oftentimes I get referrals from people who already have a therapist. I'm like, great. I don't need to do the psychological end of things because you're already doing that. But y'all didn't look at your brain and y'all haven't checked under the hood to make sure everything physiologically is okay. And so let's shore you up here. And we do that three-leg stool, people get healthy quickly. People get healthy quickly. Now, are some of us more complicated? Yes, right? But we start getting improvements much faster than if we just do one leg of the stool. So let's talk about your pain. And if you have brain fog as your pain, I want you to make note of this and ask questions if you need to. So I oftentimes find that people don't quite know what brain fog is. I am intimately familiar with brain fog. So it's a lack of clarity. It's mental confusion plus moodiness and irritability. You might even wake up feeling like really sad, like first thing in the morning, like you're just your brain's offline. Sometimes people will say it's like a wet towel is sitting over their brain and it's just heavy. Everything feels hard. It's just like you're just kind of climbing through slowly like some mud or something. Everything is hard. You're forgetful in some ways, like you'll forget names. Everything is a thingamajig or a thingamabobber, or you know what I mean. You know that person's name. It's like that. You're just your brain is really glitchy, right? You might leave things when people have brain fog, their keys. Now this overlaps with focus issues, but their keys, their phone, their wallet, they're always leaving something somewhere, right? They're just not present. Another one is processing speed. What does that even mean? It takes you a second. Like it's just like step behind, and everybody around you might have already gotten the joke or may have already understood what was happening, and you are still processing what's going on. Okay. You may find that you can read things, retain what you read, but not understand what you read. That's brain fog. Your brain feels disconnected and tired. Okay, that's the pain. That's the pain. This happens a lot with autoimmune disorders, infections, all kinds of things. So this brain fog is all over the brain. It also affects the vagus nerve, right? It's connected to the brain, to the vagus nerve and the brain stem coming out of the back of the brain. Okay. So why is this happening? Now, this is not the only reason this is happening, but this is a massive contributor because of leaky gut. Okay, so now we're not doing basics now. Now we're looking at dropping down into more functional medicine technical concepts, right? So we're thinking leaky gut. And can I do this? Can I move this over? Oh, it won't let me do that. Okay, so let me minimize this again. And hopefully you can see this. So leaky gut is about GI inflammation. Okay, I have a little one I was just working with this week, and this little one has this inflammation. And because of that inflammation, uh-oh, hold on. Okay, I'm having problems online here. So, okay, because of this inflammation, things are getting into the system because the gut lining is breaking down. Okay, so my little one is having triggers from food. So, my little one in my practice is sensitive to all things food. all things, all things, poor thing. And this individual has allergies. They also constantly are getting sick. They have overgrowths of candida that causes inflammation in the gut lining. And so then it becomes porous. Things then get into the bloodstream. Okay, things are now in the bloodstream. Once things get into the bloodstream that should not be there, we start getting inflammation in the brain. We can get inflammation in the brain, we can get inflammation in the skin. Leaky gut's a really big problem. Okay. Um, so you see here at the bottom, cardiovascular disease is tracked back to leaky gut. Autoimmune disorders are massively connected to leaky gut, massively connected to leaky gut. Metabolic disorders, bone and joint disease, complications, neurological diseases. For me, in my world, this little one that I'm talking about, the leaky gut was connected to not being able to focus in class, being spacey, not connected to what was going on in the current environment, eczema, right? Just really emotionally dysregulated. Everything made this little one cry, was just kind of hyper because things are not supposed to break through the gut lining and get into the bloodstream, right? And the younger this happens, the less defenses they tend to have and the harder it is on them. Okay. So I want you to think about that. So here's what I want to do now as I try to fix what just went wrong on my um, internet connection here. I want you to put in the chat, when you eat, do you find that about 30 minutes after you eat, maybe even an hour, you are brain fogged and sleepy? Do you notice that 30 minutes to an hour after you eat, you're brain fogged and yes, okay, okay. Or do you notice your nose is running or your skin is itchy? Um, Anything along those lines. You're bloated. Like bloating in the gut is a big one as well. Itchy skin. Okay, okay. So then you want to pay attention to this particular explanation. And what's fascinating is this one's an easy one to diagnose. Okay. Nose used to run. Yes, Miss Marty. Nose used to run. Yes. Um, this one's not hard. We can fix leaky gut. So there's no reason for anyone to run around with leaky gut. We can fix this one. Okay. And the way you know is what we just talked about. So that's what I mean. I want you to workshop. I want you to think about this. Now, this oftentimes can go hand in hand with strange digestive issues too. So maybe your bowel movements are inconsistent. You need to have a bowel movement every single day. Every single day. I would love it if it was 2 to 3 times a day. That is what's normal. That is what's normal. A minimum of once, multiple times a day would be great. Okay. Because people who have leaky gut will oftentimes, then you can be asymptomatic, just like COVID, you can be asymptomatic. Had COVID, you didn't have any symptoms, right? That's asymptomatic. So you could have leaky gut and be asymptomatic and not have any digestive issues. I usually don't find that's the case. I find that there's a lot of gas with leaky gut. There's swelling in the gut. The bowel movements are inconsistent. Okay, so make a note of that. Now, if you have leaky gut, a lot of times what's going to happen is there's a food sensitivity as well. There's a food sensitivity as well. Okay. Um, Meet Lisa. Okay. Lisa's pain is brain fog. She's tired upon rising, no matter how much sleep she gets. I get a lot of people in my practice who have 9 to 10 hours of sleep and still feel terrible in the morning, forgetting words, word soup. She would say, she would say things that didn't make any sense sometimes and then be like surprised, like, why did I just say that? Or say words like a phrase in reverse or something like that. Her brain was just not connecting. Her brain would get very tired. She'd have a lot of impatience, especially with the kids and her relationship. So a lot of times when I'm doing couples counseling, I'm just trying to make people's brains better. You know what I mean? Can you imagine two brain foggy people trying to have a relationship, who are irritated and disoriented and all kinds of things? So I try to make sure people are just feeling okay, and are doing the basics when I'm working with them, right? So she was having relationship struggles, somewhat disoriented and dissociated. It was worse at different times. Lisa would feel better when she didn't eat. If Lisa fasted, she would feel better. The moment she started eating, she would start to feel pretty bad. Okay. And that's because of that leaky gut. And she was very desperate to get her life under control because it was getting worse. Leaky gut does not resolve itself on its own. It just doesn't. What ends up happening is because your gut's leaky, now you have all these food sensitivities. So then it gets leakier because now you're reacting to things. If your life is becoming unmanageable, now you're more stressed. That makes your gut leakier. It doesn't get better on its own. Okay. So then let's talk about what you do. Okay, so we test. So here it is. This is the reveal. This is what you would do, right? So not holding anything back. This is what I do. This is what you could do. You first step is you test the gut. You test for toxins. You test for infections, and you assess for trauma because leaky gut happens for people who've had head traumas and they just have had a traumatic life. And no matter how many labs you run and how many things you do for people, if the trauma is still being triggered, your gut will stay leaky. Your gut will stay leaky. You've got to make sure that you are looking at your history. And you don't need to be in trauma therapy for the rest of your life. When it's done right, you can get in and get out. And I just want to say this, I want to drop this little nugget too, because some people who come to me have been in therapy for trauma like over the last 20 years, and we don't do it the way it used to be presented and facilitated. We have learned that talking about your trauma a lot can actually just be re-traumatizing. So processing your trauma and talking about all the terrible things over and over again, rehashing that actually re-traumatizes the patient. You don't ever have to tell me what happened if you don't want to. I don't need to know. The problem with trauma is that you are currently living in this moment triggered. I was around someone recently and they said to me, I'm very spiritual. I love God. I am very open about this. The person I was around felt triggered by the fact that I was doing something. I was praying or I had said, I'm so blessed. And boy, that triggered the person. And I thought, and so they then explained, let me say this properly. They explained that they had suffered religious trauma a long time ago. And I thought, this is the problem, right? We all go through things. The problem is that this person can be triggered by me saying, I feel so blessed, or by me praying over a meal. So I don't need to know anything about that person's past. What I need to know is that they're living triggered in this moment, that me saying I felt blessed was a trigger. That's a problem. And I don't have to go in their past to help them with that. Okay. We deal with what do you do when you get triggered. And if you don't fix that, you will continue to have leaky gut. You'll continue to struggle with it because your system's in sympathetic. It's in fight, flight, freeze. Right. And she wanted to argue. And I'm not arguing about something like that. So we worked through it. Okay. Next, you remove the infections, right? We go through and we start killing things. You remove the gut infections, you remove the systemic infections. A lot of my clients have had mono when they were a kid, and so they still have Epstein-Barr reactivating. That makes things a problem. You remove toxins in the body if you have a high toxic load. So that could be anything from the lotion you're putting on, the hair products you're using, the cleaning products in your environment. All those things will keep your gut leaky. Okay. So you stop taking in toxins, you get rid of the toxins that are in your body, and then it really helps to seal the gut. Okay. You also remove the foods, because I didn't put that here. So that was a misstep on my part. You remove foods that are toxic for your body as well. Okay. You cannot keep eating things that you're now reactive to. So that's probably one of the hardest things my clients struggle with is cutting out the foods. And I just talked about the trauma piece. Detox. Detox is a big one. Supporting your liver, supporting your gallbladder, making sure you're sweating. One thing you can do, maybe make a note of it, is go look in the mirror, lift your tongue up in the mirror, and see if you have dark, heavy blue veins underneath your tongue. That's a dead giveaway for feeling overwhelmed in the system with toxins. It's something I do in the office. It's part of my exam. I'm looking to see if there's heavy blue lines, heavy blue veins under the tongue. It just things get congested. If you cannot tolerate cigarette smoke, now, there's one thing for like it to be annoying when you're somewhere and you can't tolerate it, but if it's all you can think about when you're around it and it starts to shut your system down and you start to get brain fog, same thing around being at the gas station and the smell of gas does that to you or chemicals, you need to really look at your toxin burden because these things are supposed to be an annoyance, but they're not supposed to take you out. Okay, so that's a way to tell if you need to detox. So we've just done all these things we tested, we removed, we detoxed. Okay, we got everything out, but that's not enough. Now you need to put things back in. So this is where we start to talk about, well, do you need probiotics? Do you need leaky gut powder? Do you need enzymes? What do we need? Like what's going on? The healing substances that you need for toxin removal. Maybe you need to constantly be getting glutathione. All of this I test, and we're doing all this. Just remind you because you can't remember somebody's name. Okay, we got here because you have brain fog. So this is not Brain Warriors way. This is the heavy duty stuff of like something's really wrong in your system, and the only way your body could communicate that to you was this foggy brain experience from the inflammation. So here we are adding in leaky gut powder so that your brain works better. Okay, we're doing this stuff to keep your life on track. That's why we're doing this. And then we fix things. So we added some things in, and now we're going in and we're fixing things. People who have Lyme disease almost always have toxic mitochondria. It's part of the fatigue. The reason you're fatigued is because the energy centers in your cells are tired. They're doing things they're not supposed to be doing because we've got these infections on board or we've got these toxins on board. So then your actual cell isn't creating energy anymore. So a lot of what I now have to do is help people repair the mitochondria health, right? And that gets into the fatigue part as well. But like Lyme disease especially is so crafty and stealth, it takes down the mitochondria. Okay. Microbiome. That's why y'all all know about probiotics, right? We're fixing the gut lining. So we're just fixing stuff. We're adding in good stuff. We're going through, we're fixing stuff. Vagus nerve training. So just a tip. If you want to start working on your vagus nerve now, aggressive gargling twice a day. take some water, not mouthwash, water, get it into the back of your throat and gargle so loudly that your neighbors next door could probably hear you. Like that's how badly it should be, like loud, aggressive gargling. Or sing. I sing every morning on my elliptical machine. I sing badly but loudly, and that gets my vagus nerve going. Gagging, right? You can take something, stick it in the back of your throat, and activate the gag reflex. All right. That rehabs your vagus nerve. All this other stuff with like using some of the craziness that's on TikTok and oils, and that's not, it's a nerve. It's mechanical. You've got to do things to like activate it. I have a vagus nerve simulator that I use on a daily basis that literally goes in and it zaps my vagus nerve on both sides to activate it. It has to flex. Okay. So you really want to do that because that helps all the things that we've talked about. And I need you to keep in mind that infections are another kind of trauma to the system. Infections like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr, some to some degree Candida, they are traumatic to your nervous system. So you have to retrain and rewire your nervous system because it went to war for you and it can rock your system. So you don't just do all these labs and think you're done. Like Amira, you mentioned vagus nerve training. That's a massive part of actually getting healthy. If you had trauma, if you were abused, if you are in an intimidating relationship, you've got to do vagus nerve training and nervous system rewiring. Okay. So that's how you would heal brain fog. And I know that's a lot. And I said, my way's not easy. People come to me because they took the med, they did the talk therapy, and they're like, there's got to be more. And there's a ton more that could help you. Okay. So that's probably one of the harder ones. So the prefrontal cortex is the front part of the brain. The cerebellum is the back of the brain. It's the base of it. Okay. So lack of focus is the next pain. And oftentimes, so I get a lot of this. I'm really gifted at resolving prefrontal cortex issues and focus issues, especially when I can get my hands on people consistently. What is it? We all know what feeling unfocused is like. So it's an inability to be productive. You're not following through. You can't get started. You are procrastinating, forgetting what you read as soon as you read it. You were not present when you started reading, so you don't know what you read. You're impulsive. Your choices don't align with your responsibilities or your values. I've got people doing things that they don't understand, like why they're doing them, and you're emotionally dysregulated. The prefrontal cortex is what makes us human. It is the most evolved part of the human brain. Okay. It is what separates us from animals. It stops us from just having emotional outbursts, saying things that aren't nice, stealing things, taking drugs, drinking things we shouldn't, being in relationships with somebody else's partner. The prefrontal cortex fixes that. It fixes that, it stops that. So when I get people who have impulse control issues, I'm thinking, what's going on with your prefrontal cortex and your cerebellum? And that's what I mean. This same person could go and sit in somebody's office for 3 years and talk psychology when they have a prefrontal cortex that's not working. So you've got to do all of it. Now, why is this happening? Is this the whole reason it's happening? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we're not doing that talk. Certain foods irritate the prefrontal cortex. Okay. They make it glitchier. So, an easy first pass at the prefrontal cortex is to remove sugar, gluten, foods you were tested to as sensitive to, and synthetic sugar substitutes. So, that's like aspartame, sucralose, things like that. Okay. Now, brain fog and brain inflammation and leaky gut will also cause lack of focus. Head injuries will cause lack of focus. In utero issues will cause lack of focus. So I just want to be very clear. This isn't just the only explanation for this. I could just talk about prefrontal cortex issues in a talk and just do that. Okay. Lots of things that create it. But this is an easy place to start. Okay. So this is just, talking about how sugar blocks your brain. So let me talk to you about Cynthia briefly. She had endless and pointless to-do lists because she kept losing them, and they weren't organized. It was just like, I love working with ADHD because it's real success when it's success. Just they just would go on and on and on, the to-do list. And so then every day she felt terrible because she's never successful because nothing ever gets accomplished, right? She would not start on anything unless she was threatened to at work. It was really bad when she called. She'd forget what she read as soon as she read it. And here's the deal, I have my little logo over this, but she was on medications for focus and mood that weren't working. Okay. Um, and so she was having, on top of everything else, because the prefrontal cortex controls, your mood. What comes up doesn't come out when the prefrontal cortex is working. She had reduced emotional regulation. So she was really having a hard time, and she really wanted to get herself together. And I remember when I talked to her how desperate she sounded, because she was doing all the things she was supposed to be doing and it really wasn't working. And I cannot explain how hopeless that feels to people when they did what they were supposed to do and they're not functional. ADHD impacts actual mortality. ADHDers lose 20 years on their lives if their ADHD is not treated properly. And it's because of all these things. It's the drugs, it's the choices, it's not going to the doctor or the dentist, it's they can't keep a job, they can't control their emotions, they have a hard time with relationships, and that's if it's not treated. If it's treated, we're okay. But if it's not correctly treated, this poor woman, when I met her, was about to have a serious nervous breakdown, and she was on a lot of medications to prevent that from happening. So, what was going on? Well, a lot of things. So we tested for food sensitivities. We removed the obvious food issues. We replaced what she was eating that wasn't working for her with natural foods, but we also looked for other brain blocks. Okay. She had a lot of brain inflammation. So that was also causing problems for her. And she ended up having Lyme disease. She ended up having Lyme disease as well as Epstein-Barr, unbeknownst to her, which is why she just could not get right no matter what we did. So I did a lot of the basics of sensitivities and gut health, but I had to do that next layer that I talked about in the previous, brain fog one. Um, Massive changes for her. She'd never been able to change her diet because her prefrontal cortex didn't work well enough for her to stay on track with anything. So this is 2023. I met her last year. I met her in November of 2022. I've talked about her every presentation. By February of 2023, she had normal to-do lists that she was getting through. And I hadn't treated the infections yet. I didn't know they existed. I only did the food and I did the basics with her. She stopped getting in trouble at work. She was on amino acids and other things. We got her sleep regulated. Her brain improved a solid 50% just with the basics. But when I finally found the infections, February to March, we started to test. Once I got the infections cleared out, she came into my office 3 months later as a completely different person. Like, it was visibly shocking. The inflammation had gone down in her body. Her brain was working so much better. They were trying to give her a director job. We had to start talking about whether or not she really wanted to do all that, because she didn't start this trying to be somebody's manager. And we were talking about problems that were never on the table when we started, right? Um, this is possible. You can heal your brain. You can heal your brain quickly when you do it properly. She was one of the harder cases that I'd had because there was so much complexity. So I just want you to hear that. It may be a little noisy. Danica, can you put in the chat if it's too noisy? I was hot and left my window open. So let me know if it's too noisy. Okay, the next pain is fatigue and pain, body pain and fatigue. Now, as somebody who has navigated my way through, thank you, Danica, Lyme disease, lupus and mixed connective tissue disorder, and fibromyalgia, I am very painfully, no pun intended, familiar with the fatigue and pain issues of low energy, exercise intolerance, needing 9+ hours of sleep and still waking up tired, and all the pain piece. Okay. I know this one very well. So what do you do when you are somebody who's dealing with Lyme disease and you have body pain, or you are doing all the things but your energy's low, or this is a big one, you do not recover from exercise well. I was talking to one of my clients and she was telling me it was like Wednesday and she slept in and needed 10 hours of sleep because of a workout she did on Sunday. And I was like, what? It's just like, why are you still recovering from Sunday's 30-minute workout? That doesn't make sense. That's not okay. So if this is you, make note, okay? This one's a hard one. So pain, fatigue, this is the whole back part of the brain. So before we were talking about the prefrontal cortex and the cerebellum. When you are in pain, your brain rewires itself, okay? Because you are designed to remember pain and learn to avoid it. And so your brain gets locked in this loop of constantly being in pain and telling you about the pain. So that hopefully you'll stop doing whatever it is you're doing that is making you hurt so badly. So you literally have to repattern your whole brain once you start getting into these pain syndromes. So, and I've worked with you, Miss Marty, where you were really good about the moment you got any little pain, you were going to see the people and you were going to get rid of the pain. And I was like, that's how you do it. You don't let those pain pathways get locked in. You get rid of the pain as quickly as you can. And I don't mean with ibuprofen. Okay. You've got to figure out like what is happening and you have to get your system calmed down because your brain and your whole body get locked into just being in pain, and then people stop being able to be touched. They don't want to be engaged with because everything starts to hurt after a while. Okay. This is always toxins, some sort of like either mycotoxins and toxins and infections. Okay. You have got to look at what is going on in your system. Part of how I was so vulnerable, I still today have the most toxic lab for testing toxins in the history of my practice. I cannot find the molds, and I still have mycotoxin issues with my mycotoxin labs, right? We've moved, we did things. So if I encounter these things, I just say, come on, just hang out in me. Like, I want to keep you. That's what I do to toxins and mycotoxins. My mother had breast cancer at 40. My grandfather had, he had cancer in his 60s. If they had the resources that I have to test these things, I'd put money on the fact that my whole family just doesn't detox well. They just don't detox well. So genetically, I'm predisposed to I've looked at my genetics. You're probably, if this is you, probably have the same patterns. And so these things then poison your mitochondria. Toxins change the way your cell functions, right? Your detox pathways get overwhelmed. Then why wouldn't you be in pain? Why wouldn't you be tired? Right? If nothing's working the way it's supposed to, if the world is burdening your system, of course you feel awful. And you don't need more pain relievers or more of those things that you would be prescribed. You need to fix the problem. You need to fix the problem. I cannot emphasize this enough. It makes me sick to my stomach how many people are getting sicker and sicker and they're being given pain medication when something is legit wrong with the functioning of their body. With my illnesses, I had no options with the traditional medical system. There, what you do with lupus is you do meds and you do steroids and you do infusions. That's it. I was toxic. If I hadn't figured this out and started to work with my system, I could have very easily ended up like my mom with an early onset cancer, right? I'm also predisposed, and it's okay. I'm okay with all these things. I'm also predisposed in my family to Alzheimer's. What happens when you let the body stay toxic and tired and in pain? You develop Alzheimer's over time. You start developing plaques in the brain. Amyloid plaquing is just like a big scab. It's just like the brain has got something wrong and it's like, oh, let me put something, let's just, what in the world? Let me fix all these things. That's all it's doing. That's all it's doing. You don't have to have any of these experiences if you understand root cause explanations. So if you are in pain, you and I become best friends. I'm so sorry, but this is the one where you just spend all your time with me because you have all the problems, right? People who have a lot of pain and have autoimmune issues almost always have a history of trauma, almost always have high ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences. After a while, your body's like, I just think living is hard. It's just like, it's just tired, I don't want to do any of the things anymore. It just gets really overwhelmed. The CDC has said if you have childhood trauma, you're way more likely to have health problems when you get into your 40s, way more likely to have autoimmunity, way more likely to succumb to infections. But I'm telling you, you don't have to. Lupus is in remission for me, and it is not because of Western medicine. Okay. I don't show up on blood work as having lupus anymore. I don't show up as having it. I don't have autoimmune markers, right? Now, my brain is wired for pain. It's wired for pain. So that's a longer process. But it's a lot easier to fix the pain of fibromyalgia when you're not actively in an autoimmune process that's making your body hurt. Amira, when you have Lyme disease, you're actively in a pain cycle, an inflammation cycle, because Lyme is going after tissues, right? So you've got to stop that because I just had one of my clients, I was trying desperately to get them to follow their protocol. They went from Lyme disease and mycotoxins to lupus because I couldn't get them to follow their protocol properly. And I said, you do not understand. There's only but so much crap the human body is going to put up with before it's like, you know what? Forget this. I'm attacking everything. just I'm going to start attacking everything because I cannot figure out where the problem is. And I'm just going to go after, hey, sweet pie. I'm just going to go after everything. And the body makes no mistakes. It doesn't make a mistake. It's like chemo. It's like, I'm hoping I don't kill the host because I've got to get this thing that's in here causing all these problems, I've got to get it to go away. And so that's what ends up happening. And so people think I'm doing a lot, but I'm not. I understand that all of these things cause the pain, the fatigue, and the autoimmune issues. Okay. Okay. So a lot of the same kind of things: autoimmune disorder, chronic illness, poor recovery, pain in feet, joints, constant injuries, exhausted by the menstrual cycle, swelling and pain. This is Veronica. Boy, Veronica was having a hard time. She'd sleep 10 to 12 hours and would not feel refreshed, napping in the afternoon after work and school, using and abusing stimulants just to survive, ibuprofen abuse due to chronic pain, which then ruined her gut. And I was not mad at Veronica. I understood very well how she got here. Okay. So, what do you do? Okay. So, pain and fatigue, this is an expensive resolution. It requires all of the big guns. So, I have people with MS, I have people who, they've got polymyositis, they've got autoimmune disorders that you don't even realize exist. You can have an autoimmune disorder to everything in your body. And it's hard. Human suffering can be really hard. It can be turned around. So we do all the things. We test for toxins, test for infections, assess the trauma. Most of the time when people have an autoimmune issue, I oftentimes, and just need y'all to know this, I think there's all women on here. I find that it's not just that there were adverse childhood experiences, but they also have mother hunger. So they have some sort of traumatic relationship with their mom. So the nervous system doesn't feel safely attached to the world. And it's not like mom's a bad person. Moms do the best job that moms can do. I love me moms. Okay. So moms, I don't blame my moms. Mom is doing as best she can and learn from the last 3 generations. So we just all do the best we can. But attachment wounds can severely traumatize the system. So I find that people who are severely in autoimmune issues, we have to do healing work internally with their relationship with their mom as part of that trauma treatment. So if you're sitting here and you are in suffering and this all sounds too familiar, okay, I want you to think about the relationship that you have with your mom as well, not just the adverse childhood experiences of there's an ACE study that you can go look at, and you can take a quiz about your ACE score, ACE score. I want you to also think about like your attachment wounds from childhood, because I have to do pretty heavy lifting to resolve this. You do the same removal process, remove infections, toxins, the trauma. This one's a big trauma related one. You detox, you detox the mycotoxins. Do we know what mycotoxins are? When I say that, do you understand what I'm talking about? No, no. Okay, I'm sorry. I can nerd out and I don't always realize that I need to like, okay. Mycotoxins are mold. Um, Water damaged buildings. Okay, water damaged buildings. So sometimes you had water spill somewhere, you grew mold in your house. Okay, or you grew mold under the sink in the kitchen or under the sink in the bathroom. um, this is completely normal. Years ago, back in the 70s, they started to seal the houses up too tight because we were trying to make sure that all of our air didn't go out, the homes weren't drafty, the heat didn't go out. When they started to seal these homes, things don't dry now. So if you get any wetness in your home, you're more likely to have mold. I cannot tell you, probably my practice is 25% mycotoxin illness. People who just, normal human beings, didn't do anything wrong. There was mold somewhere in their home. They're the person who's sensitive, who has a trauma history, who has the genetics for it. They can't tolerate mold. So then mold puts off a spore called mycotoxins, and there's different kinds of spores. You inhale those. Anything you inhale goes straight to the brain. So that causes a lot of inflammation. It causes a lot of issues. It causes brain health problems. I've had people diagnosed with schizophrenia. I've had people diagnosed with bipolar with mycotoxin illness. Chronic, untreatable mental health issues that actually come down to infections. The young person I mentioned in a lot of my talks came to me on 6 different psychiatric medications that they were put on at 14 years old. Were on those from 14 to 20. This person ended up with an autoimmune disorder because they weren't being treated for mycotoxin illness and Lyme disease. The brain was screaming for help, so we gave the brain a bunch of psychiatric medications and didn't treat the health problems. One of the things you've heard me complain about repeatedly, and if I've worked with you or your children, you know I'm insistent upon, we don't do blood work on peds, on pediatric. And I do not understand it. I do not understand how it's okay to prescribe a child medication without blood work. Because if you do basic blood work, you might pick up that there's actually something wrong with the child, and the psychiatric issue that they're exhibiting is actually because there's something wrong with the child. And I just feel like we have to do everything we can to save our brain health. The explosion of mental health illnesses that we are having, the explosion of diagnosis of neurodivergence. And I love ADHDers. I have autistic clients in my practice. The numbers are out of control. We're rapidly increasing the number of diagnoses, and it's not because we are better at diagnosing. Our brains are changing, and there's a metabolic shift that's happening. So if you know someone who's got their kid on yet the 4th medication and they're 10 years old, right, and they keep trialing things, tell them about me. Tell them about this work, because it's just a shame, and there could be something legitimately going on with that child's system. And parents don't know. So I don't ever blame the parents. I don't blame anyone. Everybody's doing the best they can. The medical system's doing what it's supposed to do, but we are missing the boat with some of how we're handling mental health. So with this particular client, we removed, we detoxed, we added in, we did mitochondrial rehab, the vagus nerve training, nervous system rewiring. This is a big one here. And then that improved their autoimmune situation and the things that were causing all the pain and the fatigue in the body. If you start just taking out the problem and then putting in good stuff, I think logically it makes sense that things would get better. Um, but the person wasn't deficient in anti-inflammatory medications. Their problem was that they needed repair work and nourishment. Okay. This is expensive, fixing these things. This is an investment. I have never had anyone come back and say, I regret spending this money. Dr. Tiffany, I spent $5,000 getting my life back, and I'm mad at you. You know what I mean? Like that never happens. I talk about Miles. Miles came to me and he had all the problems, everything I just talked about, and Miles got better in 7 months. And Miles and I fought my way through tears during that appointment because Miles now plays soccer. Miles is running his business with his brothers. Miles got his life back. He's dating again. And he said, because he's young, he's one of my young ones, he's 28, and he said I can tell his story. When I met him and I said, this is going to be costly. And he said, this is costing me a lot, being bedridden, unable to focus, and hurting all the time. I can't remember people's names. I'm losing words. This is expensive. This is costing me a lot. You can't put a price on my health. $5,300 later, he's got his life back, and I see him twice a year now. He does not care. He spent $5,300 on lab work and supplements to get his life back. So I want you to know this is not a cheap route. I am painfully aware of how much all these labs and supplements cost myself. But there was a point I thought I was going to have to go on disability because things had stopped working. And that is very scary to feel like you're losing your capacity and your functioning in your 30s and early 40s. That is not life, right? So you may be the only one that's willing to advocate for you and save yourself. I want you to know that. And it's not because Western medicine doesn't care, it's that Western medicine treats in a very limited, specific way. Okay. Um, so you've learned my process. You identify the block, you add the boost, you repair what's hurt, you get in, you get out. You've heard about the 3 struggles. It is not okay to be foggy. It's not okay to be unfocused. It's not okay to be fatigued. This is like a real problem. And we just make it make sense because we think we're getting old, and that's not right. Okay. Miss Marty will tell you she is older than everybody else on this talk, and she feels freaking amazing. She feels unbelievable. I'm super proud of her, and I'm glad God gave me her as like, so I know that it's possible. That it's possible. I'm serious. So you do not have to suffer. You shouldn't suffer. And I think we tolerate a very low experience of life, and we don't have to. So you understand the holistic solutions that will balance your stool of healing. If you're here, I think out of all the things that I do, you need to reach out to somebody and do your 15-minute free consult, do your brain assessment. If your brain's not working, do the brain assessment. You come in office, I do a full workup. If you're like, no, I think my brain is okay, but something's wrong with me health wise, then you would do the natural medicine workup, which is not in an office assessment. These are the 2 things you do to kind of get going with me. The rest of these are pretty advanced interventions, and I don't start with that. I start with just like, let's assess your brain. That's a 4-step process. Or I do the natural medicine workup. That's a 3-step process. And the natural medicine workup is a little less expensive and can be done virtually. But I'm going to be honest, most of the people that do the natural medicine workup end up in my office wanting to do everything else. It's like, well, I have all this trauma or hit my head and so I find that the brain assessment just makes the most sense. It just makes sense to start with that, get a solid foundation. And like I said, my client from earlier, she was 50% better in 4 months just with the brain assessment intervention. She was able to keep her job. The next level, same thing with Miles. He started with the basics and he was like, no, we're going all the way there. Like if I can be better with some amino acids and fish oil and some exercises that you gave me, let's see what happens when we do the big guns and we do the functional medicine. And there's nothing like helping a young person get their brain back. This may prevent Alzheimer's for him. The fact that he did this now. So kind of keep all that in mind. I'm obviously very passionate about this. I have walked it. I live it. This is the kind of practice I have. I don't have an easy practice. It's a very complicated practice, and I love every moment of it. Okay, you have a moment here if you want to ask me any questions. You all have stayed on with me. I appreciate that. Thank you, Danica, for jumping, for dropping things in for me here. There's some links to some of the podcasts. If you don't sign up for my podcast already, please go ahead and do so. Do you have questions that you would like to ask me before we go? Yeah, because some of you have not actually connected with me. Any questions that you want to ask? And if you want to unmute, you can if we need to. Do you need to be in North Carolina? No. No, you don't. I have people overseas now. I have people in other states, so you don't have to be. Um, yeah, Miss Marty is not in North Carolina. She used to be. Sometimes she comes to visit. So if you come to visit, I've had people fly in just for their appointments, for intensives, so that's something to consider. But you can do the natural medicine workup virtually. That would be the best option to get started. And then maybe kind of keep in mind making a trip to North Carolina to maybe spend a day together to do other work at some point down the road. For you, Amira, Lyme disease is to be taken very seriously. Okay. It is one of the hardest things we have just in medicine, period, to treat, and it has to be addressed aggressively and swiftly. So, because it does cause some other issues down the road, it is manageable. I test now. I don't believe that I don't have Lyme disease, but when I run my labs, I don't have Lyme disease on my labs anymore. I don't show positive for, I have a history of it, and you can see that I have antibodies to it, but I don't have Lyme disease on paper. So this can be put in remission. All of this is remission. You always have Lyme disease. It'll just be in remission. It's just like having cancer. You put it in remission, and we just test and make sure that it didn't reactivate. It's the same way with autoimmune disorders. We put them in remission because you have to be careful with yourself. And for Lyme disease, you have to really manage stress. You cannot be stressed out. It's opportunistic. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay. So I do a lot of stress management. Other questions while you have me? Okay. So your next step, oh, I see someone's typing. Your next step is to, Amira, try to get an appointment for a consultation. That's what you're supposed to do next. And so that's what you guys would do. We'll be reaching out to you. Itching, leaky gut. Severe leaky gut. That's okay. Severe leaky gut. Got it. So just as a thing, as a takeaway with leaky gut, um, pay attention to the foods that cause the bloating and cause the problems. You want to take those foods out. That's a big takeaway now. If you've got little ones that you're thinking about, pay attention to when they're acting kind of spacey and silly. Those foods are aggravating the leaky gut. A cheap, like the poor man's treatment to leaky gut is aloe vera juice. Aloe vera juice. So buy aloe vera juice, start drinking it every day, 8 ounces. There's no side effect of aloe vera juice. And I'm trying to, George's aloe vera juice. Is that right, Miss Marty? It's George's, isn't it? Okay. Okay. And you can get that on Amazon. You can get it at Vitamin Shop. That's the first kind of thing you could do. The other thing is cabbage and cabbage juice. So if you boil cabbage and you were to drink the liquid from the soup, this is like a naturopath thing. This isn't very functional medicine, but you just drink the cabbage juice and that starts to heal the gut as well. So there are like natural remedies that you can do as well for like leaky gut. So yeah. And most of us have some degree of leaky gut. If you've ever hit your head, you have leaky gut. Um, If you've ever had a concussion, you have leaky gut, and the problem is sometimes it doesn't heal itself back up. That happens for a lot of my clients, and then they're never the same after a concussion, and that happens with a lot of young people. I'll end up with a client, a 15-year-old who's dealing with depression and some other things, and they've never been the same since a concussion at 12 because of leaky gut that then caused other issues, and now they've got a mood disorder. It's fascinating how it all hangs together. Okay, I will stop there. Y'all all hung out with me for quite a while. I'm super grateful. I see that a couple people have dropped off. We had a good number of people register. So I'm excited that the replay immediately goes out to everyone. So even if you were not on with me live, you will get the replay. Oh, you're so welcome. Hello, Miss Shannon. I saw your name on registration. I'm so grateful that you could join us, and I hope you got some good stuff out of this. Super grateful to see all of you participate. And I will be doing another one in about, oh, thank you, Marty. I'll be doing another one of these in a few weeks. And I'm going to do a presentation on nervous system dysregulation and techniques that you can use to manage the nervous system, because so much of this comes down to that. Okay, great. And I think that'll be a fun one for us. So keep a lookout for that one as well. And then we have another Brain Warriors Way. I think Shannon, that's the one that's in the magazine. Shannon is with the local magazine, and I think the Brain Warriors Way, yes, in October. She's with Natural Awakenings magazine. And that's the one we're marketing for October. So Shannon, I may do one before that one. It was all we could do to get you that one. So, and so that will be the nervous system one. Okay. All right. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. I really appreciate it. Okay. Be well.